Crystal, are you still DJing or has Gen Z taken that over?
They should be taking over. I just think no one's like kind of, wanting to be brave enough to step into that role. But
They
I mean,
choose to fill.
I would love to pass the torch if I'm being honest. I feel like the music now, I don't know what these kids are listening to and it's stressing me out. I'm putting on music that I think is good.
It's like get low from the
I
window. And Gen Z is
know.
like,
To the wall.
we don't like this.
They're like, who is that? I do not know who Little John and the East Side Boys are.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited. Today we have a living, breathing legend of the U.S. Women's National Team returning to friendlies. It's Crystal Dunn. In addition to being a World Cup winner and gold medalist with the national team, Crystal has also been a mainstay in the NWSL. She helped the Courage and the Thorns to trophies. She picked up a few trophies herself, MVP and Golden Boot in 2015 with the Washington Spirit. But in January of this year, Crystal shocked the world when it was announced she'd be leaving the NWSL behind for the Premier League and Paris Saint-Germain in France. Crystal, I am so excited to chat with you. Welcome back to both our show and to America.
Thank you, Sam. It's good to be back.
I imagine. So you're temporarily back in the US for She Believes, and then you'll be heading back to France. You're making your new home there in Paris. And we've had a few other French friends on recently, Lindsay Heaps, Sophia Huerta, and I've been asking them what they miss about the US when they're away. But I actually want to ask you the opposite. You're back here in America. What do you miss the most about France?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was only there for like I feel like 12 days since
Oh yeah, that's so short.
signing, so it hasn't been that long, but I mean, I really just love the like small kind of city vibe of like the little village and the scenery is so beautiful, but I would say like the croissants kind of a classic answer, but my son is like crushing croissants. Like when he was there, he ate like four a day. And I was like, dude, you need to slow down a little bit, but they're so great.
Butter. It's the butter.
It's
Like
the butter.
it's just the butter. I don't know what else to tell anybody. Like, and every time I go to Europe, I'm just like, butter me up. I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
The food in France is so unbelievable, but I do want a French language update. You've also joked that your son, Marcel, who's 2.5, speaks better French than you do. So is he teaching you French now?
Oh man. Okay, so he's not quite teaching me French because I think he just doesn't have the patience and the understanding to like basically be like, "Mom, you're not good at French. Like why?" And but he understands so much more French than me. Like my mother-in-law doesn't really speak that much English, and when she was watching him, she was only speaking French to him and he was just like understanding everything she said. Meanwhile, I've known my mother-in-law for like 7 years now, and when she speaks to me sometimes I'm still like, I don't know what you said. So it just goes to show you, like, kids, their minds are like
Yeah.
sponges. Like, he just, like, he gets it. And here I am, like, age 32, trying to, like, really learn the language properly. And I'm like, I am struggling. So,
My mind is like a rock at this point. It's like I only know what I know. There's not that much getting absorbed.
yeah, learning something new, you're like, oh, man, this is tough. This is tough.
Yeah, it's tough. Okay, so you're mentioning your mother-in-law. Obviously, Marcel has got this head start in speaking French because your husband Pierre is from France. So your family has spent time in both the States and in France, obviously. But what kind of changes do you think you might see in your family now that you're spending all this time in France?
It's going to take a lot of managing, just like family life and career wise. I feel like my son's not going to be there full time as of right now. He still goes to school in the US, in New York. And so it is going to be a bit of like a management moment where I have to be like, okay, I am a mom. When he's with me, it looks like this. And then when he's not, it's going to look completely different. So I think I just find myself really just embracing all that this new journey is giving me right now. So, but I have a really supportive husband who gets it. He's like, your career is super important. It's not forever. So we can ride these waves for the time being and then kind of hit reset once the summer happens and I go back home and then we have another plan.
Okay, amazing. I mean, I can't wait to hear more about PSG and France and what's new with the national team in a little bit. But I actually wanted to pick back up where we left off, Crystal, the last time we spoke. That was in March of 2024. And I don't know if you remember, but the last time you talked to us, you had just gotten back from Africa and you saw some games there during the Africa Cup of Nations. So we were chatting about how cool it would be to see African soccer get more global attention. And then literally in the NWSL season last year, we saw women's African players like Barbara Banda from Zambia, Temwa Chewinga from Malawi completely take the NWSL by storm. What did it feel like after your experience in Africa to then take the field with players like this?
I am incredibly excited to see how the growth of the game has progressed and also how more African players are becoming stars. You know, they're really being put on the map. They're spotlighted in, especially in the NWSL, doing incredible things and, you know, winning MVP awards in the first year of being in a completely new league. I think just goes to speak to how talented African players have been that way for a while. And I think now I'm really excited and happy to know that they're finally getting their flowers. You know, as a woman of color, I'm a big advocate for just really people seeing women of color play this game, not putting us in a box and not thinking that we are not multidimensional and we can do multiple different things. And I think you're seeing it now that women of color, we've been here for a while in this game, and we're just going to keep showing up. And I think what you're seeing now is, you know, us finally getting flowers and being celebrated. And, you know, hopefully everyone can be inspired by the idea that this game is growing so much more.
Especially right now, it's incredible to see that both the superstars of the NWSL and of the national team are Black women. You, Naomi Girma, Triple Espresso, the Thompson sisters, Jaden Shaw. This team looks so different than the team you joined 10, 12 years ago. How does it feel for you to see this many women of color representing the U.S.?
Oh man, I'm so proud. It's like almost like I'm a proud auntie where I'm like just you know, I'm here to really continue celebrating how far we've come. When I first joined the team, there weren't many people that looked like me. So I kind of had to get my footing in an environment that I was like, oh, I don't really have someone to like lean on in times where I may feel a little like isolated or alone in certain instances. And I think looking around the team now, seeing how diverse we are is incredible. It brings a tear to my eye because I know how long it's taken and I know how hard it has been for so many of us to feel like we are seen properly in this sport. Yeah, I'm like that proud auntie that's just like cheering us all on every step of the way. And I think it's so incredible and I'm excited for our future because it is extremely bright.
I am so happy to hear all of this, Crystal. I do think that you've been one of the players who have done a lot to change the way the media especially talks about Black athletes. I think you were always really outspoken in saying, I'm not just going to be described as fast and athletic. I want to be described as smart. I want to be described as having good vision and being technical. And no, like in my worldview, you're one of the people who really helped me open my eyes and recognize the way that Black players were being talked about. And I've tried really hard in my media career to always, you know, dig deeper into players and talk about what makes them good. And so I think it's really cool to talk to you about this because you've been one of the people leading the way for all these younger players who now have this place on the national team where they have idols and people to look to and lean on for help when they're at a new tournament for the first time. So thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad I got to ask you about that. I want to get into your decision to go to PSG. So in January, you announced that you'd be parting ways with Gotham. Gotham was the NWSL club you had just signed for one season ago. And this was in the middle of some other high-profile exits from Gotham. But everybody was really shocked. At least you left earlier than people expected. And I know that you were really sad about this decision. I saw your post on Instagram. But I was wondering if you could describe what was so hard to leave Gotham.
You know, for me, going back home, being able to play in front of my friends and family was something that I was really, really excited about. You know, everyone knows me. It's like I'm from New York, born and raised. Everyone, you know, closest to me resides in that area. So it was really, you know, exciting for me to have that opportunity to go home and raise my son in a very familiar place and for him to grow up and see his cousins and his family was really, you know, high on my priority list at that time when I was a free agent, looking for my next opportunity. And so, you know, the decision to leave wasn't easy. I think, you know, people probably are, like you said, shocked in a sense of, you know, I'm from there, everyone I know is there, and, you know, why make this decision? And, you know, ultimately it was the best thing for me. It was something that wasn't easy to do, but at the same time, I'm a big believer in, you know, nobody cares about your career more than you. And when you feel like, you know, it is time to move on from something, I think you have to listen to yourself and listen to those that support you, and also understand that, you know, your career is always going to take you in so many places. You obviously hope to stay put in a place that you care deeply about. But at the same time, the opportunity with PSG came about pretty, you know, sporadically and wasn't something planned. And I think when they did reach out and when we had conversations, it was something where I was like, wow, I never thought I would go overseas at age 32, being married and with a child. Like, it just seemed like a bit of a lot, if I'm being honest. And I think in a way it also felt like it was the right decision to go overseas at this time because I needed a change, and I also think I was saddened with the idea that I was leaving home and leaving a very familiar place that I cared so deeply about. And I said, if I am going to leave, I'm going to find a new environment that's going to take me on a new adventure. And also, in a way, France is a familiar place. I have found a lot of success there in my career. I've played a lot of big games there, and my husband's French, his family's from there. And I think for me, it actually felt like it was a home away from home. So I think that's really what ultimately led me to pursuing that opportunity, is that feeling of, man, I'm bummed about leaving home, but now I actually feel like I'm falling into a place that I actually feel like I've called home for a lot of time in my career.
When the opportunity first arose and there was interest from PSG, did you talk to any of your U.S. women's national team teammates who are currently playing in France and kind of maybe ask about the league? Did you call Lindsay? Like, what steps did you go through when making this decision?
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten that question a lot, and me and Lindsay actually just talked about it, and I was like, no, I actually didn't reach out to anybody, like it was a shock for her. Like, when she started hearing rumors, reached out to me, and I was like, all I did was send her a croissant emoji. So that was my way of kind of being like, you're onto something, yeah. So, but I honestly kept this decision so close to me, and I really only spoke to friends and family about this decision because it was so big for me, and I didn't really want everyone to be a part of the decision because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. But obviously Lindsay's been there for a while, and I think, she's truly enjoyed it in so many ways. And I think even without speaking to her about my decision, I have always known that, clearly she has found a home in playing in France. And I think for me, I was excited with having that opportunity to do the same.
What about the club itself? Like, what were the things about PSG that made that team feel like the right fit?
When you're trying to find a new environment, you want to go through the proper steps of making sure it's the right fit. I obviously had done that in previous times where I've changed teams, is really trying to speak to coaches, speak to GMs, and really understand like what the club is all about. And so, when I had my conversations with the GM, he really valued, not just who I was as a player, but all the things that I am off the field and what I advocate for and what I stand for as a leader off the field. And so I really was excited with this opportunity to try to help lead a team that's fairly talented, has a bit of youth, has some veteran players as well. And I think I was just excited to join a team where I felt like, wow, like I can help lead this team. I can really help bring about, that American mentality, that, that competitiveness, and add that to this team. It's kind of just asking questions that you feel like when you get the answers, you feel connected and close to a team that you're hoping to join.
This isn't your first time playing abroad. We know that you played in the Women's Super League in 2017 and 18, and you've said that you would have played there longer, but that you wanted to come back and play in the NWSL then because you thought it would help secure your spot on the national team. I can relate to that. I felt the same way when I was at Man City in 2020, that being away from the NWSL was potentially this, kind of walking a tightrope with U.S. soccer, and you had to make sure everything was going perfectly. But things feel different now. Lindsay Heaps is overseas, Naomi Girma, Jenna Neiswanger just went to the WSL. With all these players moving abroad, how do you think that this kind of, dispersal of the national team across international leagues will affect the national team ecosystem?
When I first went to Chelsea, not many of us were playing overseas at that time. It definitely felt like a decision that I was like, whoa, where's everybody at? I'm kind of by myself doing this. There wasn't much access to the games. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to balance my, responsibilities with the national team and obviously club. It was that feeling of, oh, my national team coaches can't see me play. Like, how are they going to bring me into camps if they didn't know really what I did over the weekend if there wasn't access to the games
Yeah.
like there is now. So I think that was a massive challenge. And like you said, it's like I think when you're a national team player, there's always that balance of wanting to be all that you need to be for club in order to be, you know, ready and available for the national team. And so what I see now is definitely it is more celebrated and encouraged for players to pursue any opportunity that they see fit that's going to help their career in the way that they truly believe is going to, you know,
Right.
make them better and be available for selection for the national team. And obviously I think Emma Hayes is a big part of that, just being supportive of players to be in the best environment for them. I don't think it's ever about whether the NWSL is better than, you know, the WSL or the French league. It's never about that. It's about players really fine-tuning their craft in whatever environment that is going to help them do that. And so I'm obviously excited for players to pursue going overseas. I did it obviously, like we said, when I was younger, when I felt like it was a bit easier to do so. And I think for younger players, like, yeah, you have to invest in your career the way you need to, because again, like I said, no one is going to care about your career more than you. So if you feel like this is right for you, you have to trust your intuition and trust your decision, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's giving players like a little bit more, the way it feels now is giving players a little bit more autonomy to say, I think for Jenna Nicewanger to say, I actually think what I need right now is to go play in England and I want to play for Arsenal and I'm going to maybe play midfield and I'm going to maybe play outside back. And it's kind of on Jenna to say, this is what I think is best for me. And sure, she can call Emma and ask Emma's opinion. And it sounds like Emma has been really forthcoming with encouraging players to do what you're saying and go where they think is best. But at the end of the day, like Jenna, Naomi, you, Lindsay, you all have to make decisions that are best for you. And having that autonomy feels like a positive change to me, who I felt kind of played at a time where I almost didn't want that autonomy. I wanted somebody to like tell me what to do so that I didn't take any risk. You mentioned this yourself, but Emma is such a key part of this. And coincidentally, when you did play for Chelsea in the WSL, you played for Emma.
Yeah.
What is your relationship with Emma like now?
Me and Emma have a great relationship. I mean, I think that's just solely because she's a great human being. She has a really healthy, wonderful relationship with all of the players here because she is so easy to talk to and so transparent. And I think she has done such a great job of really just coming in and laying the groundwork, but also not trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, I think her coming in at the time that she did, leading into an Olympics, was a challenge, of course.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. But at the same time, she did it in such a way where it allowed a lot of calmness to happen before obviously a major tournament. And that comes with transparency, accountability, and just all those things that were set at the highest level so that it trickled down to the players to feel the best we could possibly feel going into a major tournament. And that she was the same way when I played for her a decade ago. Goodness gracious, I'm aging myself, but it's actually funny how I stumbled.
It wasn't quite a decade ago. It wasn't a whole decade.
It's a decade. It's crazy.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
But when I first went to Chelsea, it's funny because looking back, I don't even know how I stumbled into Chelsea. I think at the time, everyone was always speaking about Man City and Arsenal. And I think when I went to Chelsea, I was like, I don't know, I was like, I like this team. I'm going to try Chelsea out, you know? And when I got there, it was just like, you know, me and Emma we clicked. She always speaks about this in her interviews of how she truly values American culture and our spirit, our kind of competitiveness and our, you know, our energy and our intensity. And I think that was one of the first compliments she gave me when I went to Chelsea. She was like, Crystal, I love your American spirit. And I'm just like, I don't know, what do you mean by that?
Okay.
I'm just here to like try to win and be competitive and be intense. And it really shows you how, you know, passionate she is about this job she has here, being the women's national team coach, because I think for a long time, she has really, really loved what we're all about our history, our, you know, our ability to really just, you know, grind through games. And, you know, and I think she truly, you know, really enjoyed that. And I think when I was at Chelsea, it was incredible that she gave that compliment, because I was kind of like, I don't know, what do you mean? And then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I know what you mean, actually.
Yeah. Crystal, you and I are both products of like the youth systems of US soccer. You got called up to the senior team when you were pretty young. And so we're
Mhm.
talking so much about Emma, kind of what sets her apart as a coach, but she's really talking and doing. She's expanding the player pool to younger players. She's had this futures camp in January. She's called up players from there. As a player who has been through this program for so long, from like your youth days to now, what would your advice be for players trying to make that jump from junior teams or the futures camp to being here at She Believes with the senior team?
Man, I totally forget how much we've come up in the youth system. I mean, we have been,
I
Sam, you and
know,
I have like
Crystal.
every youth World Cup, we've been together, the 17s, the 20s. We've won in Tokyo in what was it,
I know.
2012? And
Yeah.
it's really incredible to really feel like you've been kind of in this system for so long. But I think it also is interesting to know like everyone's journey is so different. I mean, there's people on this team that like haven't had that route and haven't had that exposure at the youngest youth levels. And I think it's incredible to see that it's not a one size fits all. And I think my advice to, the young players getting their debuts, getting their, first couple of minutes is really just embrace the fact that it is your own journey. What someone else is doing is not going to be your journey into, your successful moments. It's going to be really about you managing what is best for you and what you personally need to do in order to continue growing, to continue getting better, embracing all that this journey has to offer, because there's going to be a lot of bumpy times ahead. No one's career and journey has been this like linear straight path.
Right.
We would all have loved for that to be, but the reality is like you're going to have setbacks. You're going to have moments where you're going to doubt yourself. You're not going to feel comfortable. But in those moments, I actually think you're the closest to being successful. When you
Mm.
have a moment of a setback, you're like, all right, I want to make sure that I don't feel that again. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything now in my power to make sure that I'm on the right track. And I think when I see the young players and how talented they are, it's to be celebrated, because talent is a big part of being on this team and being seen and showcasing who you are as a player. But I think the next level is always about just trusting that the journey is going to have its moments where you're gonna have a moment of uncomfortableness, and it just means that you're that much closer to actually correcting what you did before and getting yourself back on track. And so yeah, it's exciting to see. And it's really a wonderful thing to be able to be a part of people's first caps, because when you
Yeah.
look back and you were, when we were like, oh, getting our first caps, it's like, wow, like look at how far the game has grown and how far
Yeah.
we've all come. So it's actually been, really, really good to see. I feel like a proud mama bear now.
I know. I mean, we just saw Sonic get her 100th cap, which we've been talking so much about, like the milestones of caps.
Yeah.
And Crystal, you have over 150 caps for the national team. It's such an incredible achievement to play for the national team that much. I think it really cannot be overstated just how incredible it is to be that permanent a member of the team. Do you feel that with all those caps and all your experience comes an expectation to be a leader? I mean, we talked about you wanting to go to PSG to kind of flex that muscle and help lead the team. How do you feel about your leadership role in the national team?
I think when you have been on the team for a bit of time, you have a bunch of caps under your belt. I think there is an expectation that you have to step into a leadership role, not even because you want to or that you're amazing at it, but again, that expectation of you've been here before. It's almost like you have to pass that torch. You have to help pull others up with you. And I think for me, it feels natural though. I think I've always been somebody that has really enjoyed team environments, to feel like we're all in this together, regardless of the phase of career that you're in. I think it feels very natural for me to look over and see if a player needs a bit of advice, to go over and help her in any way I possibly can. And I think that does come with you being here long enough to feel like you have that capacity to do so. Because I think when we were younger, yeah, it's not easy to balance trying to make a team, trying to fight for a roster spot, trying to develop your game, and also on along the way helping others in their
Yeah.
careers as well.
I
And
was
I
just trying
think
to help myself.
I know I was like, I'm just trying to survive. I'm trying to stay afloat. I'm trying to not have a bad touch. Like all these things. I think when you're more of a veteran player now, you're like, oh, I'm not really like concerned with that. Like
Yeah,
I feel like for me, it's like balancing still wanting to learn, still wanting to grow and be the best player I can be, but also
right.
knowing that I have a bunch of these caps under my belt to know like I've done it so consistently for so long that I now have the capacity to help others gain their consistency and gain their moment and development. And I think it's funny because you all of a sudden blink and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm the mentor now. Like I was just getting mentored like 5 days ago, it felt
Yeah.
like. And now you're like, wait, I have to like help these others. But it's like it's just natural though, because you just, you step into an environment, you realize you're like, if I want this team to be as successful as possible, like I gotta pull my load.
Crystal, are you still DJing or has Gen Z taken that over?
They should be taking over. I just think no one's like kind of, wanting to be brave enough to step into that role. But
Big
I mean,
shoes to fill.
I would love to pass the torch if I'm being honest. I feel like the music now, I don't know what these kids are listening to and it's stressing me out. I'm putting on music that I think is good, but I feel vibes of like people being like, what is that song? Like what is that? So we're gonna see.
It's like get low from the
I
window, and Gen Z is
know
like
to the world.
we don't like this.
They're like, who is that? I do not know who Little John and the East Side Boys are. But yeah, no, I think I would love to pass that torch if I'm being honest. So to anybody listening, all the young kids,
Step up.
please step up. I am asking you to. I will hold auditions to see who can get the gig.
Okay, so well, it's a new World Cup cycle beginning, Crystal. This is a great opportunity for somebody to step up and stake their claim. Everybody knows if you're the DJ, you are irreplaceable to the team.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's a great thing. What hopes do you have for this team as we kind of enter this new cycle? Obviously, the World Cup is coming up 2027, but there's lots of time. Like, what are you hoping to see this team grow into, improve on, focus on?
These in between years, what we always call it, they are the years for players to really develop their own game, especially younger players, and also for the federation to deepen the player pool. And so I think for me, what I really hope to see from this team is just the continuation of building. We don't need to be peaking at this moment. We're still kind of getting our bearings in so many ways, but we're adding layers to our game, game by game. And I think, for me, it's about players stepping in and getting the experience and gaining consistency. That's the biggest thing, because that's really what helps win the major tournaments, is really feeling like when you step into these tournaments, you're not even overthinking anything anymore. You're just feeling the chemistry off of each other. And that comes with players being in consistently and developing their game and their attributes to the team. And I think that's what you're probably going to see for these 2 years, is Emma needing to see players and give them experience. And I think, ultimately that's going to set us up for success in 2027.
Ah, well, I'm so excited. I just have one more question for you, really. And I think I just want to know, when you think about this time in your career, this journey that you've been on, all that you've been through, and all that you've learned and given to the game, in the future, when you talk to Marcel, your son, about your career as a soccer player, what lessons do you hope he can absorb from watching you go through this and being a part of your life in the way you've handled your career and made decisions that were best for you, best for your family? What do you hope Marcel sees in you when he grows up and recognizes what you've done in your career?
Oh man, when my son grows up, I really hope he really appreciates the fact that mom and dad took him to like 25 countries and he got to travel at such a young age, and most kids are not doing that. So I would hope he really really loves me even deeply because of that. But I really think for me, being a mom while also playing soccer has been really incredible. Being able to play in games and look up in the stands and, see my son smiling and waving has been something that I think I personally needed in my career. I've always wanted to be a mom. I didn't always know if it was going to be alongside playing. And I think, for him, when he grows up, I really hope he sees that I really, in a way, needed him to be a part of my career and a part of my journey. And I'm really grateful and fortunate that he has been along for the ride, and he's made a lot of really hard moments so much easier, because I get to come home and be like, oh man, I had a bad game, or I had a bad training. And I get to come home and this kid is like, mommy, play with me. Like, the kid does not know or care at this point. And I think it's really humbling to also feel like, man, like we as players think the world comes to an end when a game doesn't go our way or when a training session doesn't go our way. And I feel like he has been that constant in my life where I just get to like reset and be like, actually, everything is totally
Yeah.
fine. And for me, I think as women, especially, giving ourselves grace has been really hard to do in my career. I'm sure for many of us, it has been hard. It's like the world is always on our shoulders in so many ways. And I think being a mom has made me actually feel like when I come home, I'm like, oh man, it's great. Life is actually okay. So I hope he realizes and sees that like he was everything that I've ever wanted to continue my career, and I love him so much. And motherhood is hard, but it really it fills up my cup in ways that I feel like would be entirely empty if I didn't have him along.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Crystal. That was really beautiful. Marcel is a very lucky kid to have you and Pierre as his parents. I just love chatting with you. I'm so happy that we got this chance to speak. I'm always cheering for you, Crystal. I'm like one of your biggest fans, and I love watching you
Thanks,
play.
Sam.
And I'm so glad that we've been on just such a little journey together.
We've been on our journeys together. We're literally like sisters. We've been everywhere together, and
I
it's been
know.
incredible. I always love when we bump into each other. Obviously at Lynn's wedding, woo, fun
Oh my
times.
God.
And I love you so much and everything
I
you're
love you
doing for the
too.
game. So
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. This is really, really incredible. And I'll be cheering for you this tournament and cheering for you at PSG. I'm so excited to watch.
thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Crystal is truly the best. I just loved hearing about Marcel's obsession with croissants. Like, same Marcel. We might actually be the same person. Thank you all so much for listening and being here with us. Next week's guest is another U.S. Women's National Team star. How lucky are we? It's Tierna Davidson. We had such a great chat about Tierna's come up onto the national team, plus the upcoming season at Gotham, and tons more stuff. You're definitely going to want to tune into that one. So make sure you're subscribed to TWG on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and that way you won't miss an episode. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll see you soon.